Good afternoon. I'm Jill Jean. I'm Library Director for the Kitsap Regional Library, and I have the wonderful opportunity to really get our party started here today. So please. Thank you. Before we begin, though, I would like to let you know that we have Dr. Marty Cavalluzzi. I was determined I was going to butcher his name, but is he with us yet? He is the president of Olympic College, and we're really grateful to have this wonderful venue. And thanks, Marty, wherever you are. I'd also like to let you know that BCAT is filming today, so you will be able to look back on some of the memories of this program at some point very soon. So as we begin, I'd like to ask you a question. What could happen if every single person in Kitsap County read the same book? Imagine the kinds of questions and conversations we could inspire. That is the premise of Kitsap Regional Library's One Book, One Community program, now in its 11th year. One Book, One Community is a simple initiative with all the potential to make a huge impact on our community and far beyond. It's true. There are some things in this world that are hard to talk about, but it's a lot easier if you can start on some common ground. Each year we endeavor to create that bridge and invite our community to participate in a shared reading experience. Through this, we create a starting place for open discussion on tough topics that still need to be talked about. Talking on everything from family, the Great Recession, to immigration, our 2019 title reminds us of what it means to put faith in and believe in the American dream. By reading this story together, we have built a foundation for conversations about race, family, and immigration, allowing us all a unique perspective on history. We are so fortunate today that Behold the Dreamer's author, Imbolo Mbue, is joining us today. While our community overwhelmingly supports the essential services of our library system, special opportunities like today's events are made possible through the efforts of the Kitsap Regional Foundation and generous donors, many of whom are with us today. We simply cannot thank you enough for your support and generosity. Thank you. We also want to thank our community partners, Olympic College. Thank you, David. This is an amazing space, and we are so glad to be here. And the Kitsap Immigration Assistance Center for working with us to find our wonderful panel today. And finally, I'd like to introduce to you David Nelson, who is the editor of the Kitsap Sun, who will be the moderator for our panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for coming. I was really excited to get to be the moderator today. And when Mark and Jeannie asked me, the reason that I wanted to do it was because I had just finished reading the book. I participated in One Book every year, and I really think it's a good program. But this year, I really thought this was a great selection. I think many of you would probably agree with me there. So the first thing I wanted to do was to thank Imbolo Mbue for coming here and writing this book. And first of all, it was wonderful. And I thought that needed to be said. What we're going to do today is let some stories that are themes in the book come out. The book is about the American dream, of course, and one of the couples, Jinde and Nene, is an immigrant family. And so what we've done is arranged a panel of people with their own stories on those themes. And I'm going to turn it over now to the author, and she's going to moderate that part. We'll talk until about 1 o'clock, and then we'll take a short break. We'll let you go out, get refreshments, use the bathroom if you need to, and then we'll come back and get to hear Imbolo speak about her book from her perspective, and then we'll do some questions. So be thinking about what you'd like to ask, and we'll open it up during that time. But first, the mic is yours, and we look forward to this.
Thank you, David. Thank you guys so much for having me. This is my very first time in Seattle area, so I'm very delighted to be here and to be part of this panel. So this is going to be not about me, it's going to be about our wonderful panelists. And we're going to spend this time talking about their experience in America. So I'd like to ask you guys, maybe you can start, Jose, to tell us about, your native land, if you know where you're from or where your ancestors are from, and how you ended up in the Kitsap area.
Hello to all, good morning, good afternoon, I think it's the time right now. So, yeah, I'm from Puerto Rico. I have been in Kitsap around 1 year and a half. Me and my partner came here shortly after the hurricane devastated the island. So we have been here fighting a lot, saying it that way. And also, like, with a lot of determination to find a place in where we can live and fulfill our dreams. And I think that Kitsap is a good place to start that life that we all agree with, all this American dream, all that. So shortly after coming from Puerto Rico, we came here and we started applying everywhere. Thanks to that, we started working maybe in supermarkets. We started working in a lot of places, but with a lot of determination, now we're here, like trying to complete and fulfill that American dream, which I'm going to have maybe an opportunity later to explain that more in detail. I am the Adult Services Librarian at Kitsap Way, in Selwyn Way, so it's very happy to be here with you all.
Oh, thank you. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest, but just a little bit calm down now. My name is Nhung, and I'm from Vietnam, and I've been in America like 6 years now, from 2013. So it's for me is when I came in here from Vietnam, that's the whole picture. I draw the really beautiful picture for me, my son, and my husband. When we came here, but, things always happen. So for me, I came in here by traveling to visit my family, not my family, my husband's family, like relative and in Florida. That's the first place I went to in Florida. So it's kind of start a long story about my life when I start over here, and a little bit different than maybe anyone else over here. It's really beautiful. It was really beautiful in Florida for like first 10 days. I visit people over there. It's beautiful, but it's hot. It's really hot. I mean, oh wow. Okay, it's beautiful. But when we go there, travel around to like Tampa Bay, San P, Newport Richie to see all his friends and relatives, and there we go. That started my life here. After 10 days, we visit them. So when I work with my friend, my family there, so he took my son, went to the McDonald's store, and I got a phone call from him. He say, hey, I couldn't breathe, so I feel like I got a heart attack. I say, wait a minute. Were you kidding me or something wrong? I say, no, and he almost fell on the floor in a McDonald's there. So I say, okay, to get help from there, and they brought him and my son, 2 years old kid, boy, he's a boy, to the hospital over there for like around 50 minutes away from the McDonald's. So I went there. I say, okay. I calm myself down a little bit, and I say, this is not a beautiful picture right here. So a little bit nervous at that time, and I just thought like maybe he just kind of like got flu or sick, something like that. And after he been there for like 3-4 days, the doctor say, okay, your husband, he have got the heart congestion failure, and he got heart attack at that time. I say, wow. So what am I gonna do? So because my visa come here for 6 months, that's all I'm allowed to stay here. And I talked to the doctor about that. So I don't know what to do now. So what should I do? I gotta leave him here, or I have to come back with my son. And with my plan, we came in here is like I want to my son growing up in Vietnam, so he understand about like the culture over there before he came in here. So that's my plan. And then we came here. He got into the hospital, and one of my friend, he's a lawyer in California. So he told me, you got 2 choices now. So one here, you have to get help from immigration office in Florida to can extend your time you're staying here to taking care of your husband. Or you can ask them if they have got something kind of program for you to stay here longer. And then you can come back or whatever it help you, it's time now. So I went there, I went to online, I put application online, and they returned back because I just don't have enough information to fill out an application. And they kind of like say, they cannot accept my application. And then I had to went to the lawyer in Tampa Bay, and they helped us. So it took everything, all the paper stuff, is around like 8 or 9 months. So I got an interview in Tampa Bay with immigration, and I got the green card for 10 years. So that really big help for me, because at the meantime, I just kind of like, I suck, and just a little bit English, cannot find anyone to help, even like, a couple friends there, they say, I don't know what to do to help you. And the meantime is, so, I just appreciate so much all the people there, like immigration people, office, to help us go through a lot of stuff like that. And just my life just start from like, at the beginning like that, not come here for just 10 days is beautiful. It was beautiful 10 days. But it's kind of like, okay, it's now time to learn. And you start your life over here, and you have to do something. And that's the 1 year we were in Florida, I started my life from the rock, bottom of rock. So it just make me feel so much kind of like, okay, this is a plan people looking for, helping with help, and and you will get it. If you do your best, they will there to help you. And thank you. So that's just a little bit story from when I started with my life over here. And I know it's not kind of like a happy start, but to be honest with you guys, and that make me stronger today. That helped. So thank you for you guys all here and spend time with us today, and just kind of listen all the story. And I hope you guys have a good time today. So after later on too. All right, so I'm going to pass the mic in here.
Hey everyone, good afternoon, I think. My name is Juana, and this is my story. I'm from Guatemala, a small village from Guatemala. While I was in Guatemala, my mom volunteered for a church. And our church was helping this guy be our candidate of president. And while we were at the voting place, um, the guy that wanted to be a candidate of president was called Partido Une. And there was this other guy that wanted to be the candidate, and he was Partido Patriota. Partido Patriota got there at the voting place and exploded a bomb that contained poison gas. We got locked up in a house, well, where we were voting, and for a half a day we were starving. People were banging on the doors for help. When we got out, they were still there shooting. I didn't know if people got injured or there was. I didn't know anything. I was only 6 years old. All I remember is that I was holding my mom's hand. I was crying. I didn't understand what was going on. After that happened, I got at my village and I went to my church with my mom. When I got there were people standing there throwing rocks at the window, breaking the windows of my church. It was all sad. After that got cleared up, some of the people that worked for the church too helped. And after that happened, I went over to my grandma's house, my dad's mom. I stayed there for the night. After, maybe at midnight, I don't remember, but at midnight, I think, I woke up. My family woke up. We were hearing noises, things exploding. Fridge were exploding, stove. So we were wondering what it was. We ran out. When we looked over, there was a big fire going on. And then, so my mom left with my aunt and grandma and grandpa. They went to see what was going on. And my mom said, when she got there, my house was gone.
Well, let's give her a minute. Jose, do you have anything to add as far as, you
I'm sorry.
oh, okay. You can.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
My house was gone. It was burned down. And then she told me it was burned down, my stuff were gone. The next morning I woke up. My uncle took me and see what happened. When I got there, it was all black. There was nothing, just a piece of my house left. I looked over at my mom. She was crying. People were calming her down. Then after that, I told my mom everything will be okay. And then that day, my grandma told me, just stay with us. We didn't have nowhere else to live, what to eat. And my mom said, okay, we stayed there. One day I came home after school. She was sitting down waiting for me. And then she told me, Juana, I can't do this anymore. It's time for us to leave. Let's get away from here.
I've had enough from these people. I feel like I'm the only one that they want me to die. She told me, let's go get a better life. Live happy. And then I said, okay. I hugged her. I started crying with her. And then when we crossed the border, the US border, she lost her backpack. We had all our stuff in there. Our clothes, our food, and my birth certificate and hers. And thankfully she know my birth date. And when they asked her questions, she knew them. If she didn't know them, we would have come back to my village in Guatemala. We got locked up for 3 days. When they let us out, they went to drop us off at a bus station. And then we got in, they brought us to Olympia. When I got to Olympia, I walked out of the bus and I saw it was beautiful, clean. I've never seen a clean place before. And then I told my mom, I don't think I can do this. I think I'm gonna be hated. I'm different. I'm not from here. My uncle got there and picked us up and he took us to his apartment. And we went to eat. We were hungry. And then my first day of school, I was scared. I didn't know English. But I had a teacher that speaks Spanish, and she introduced me to a lot of kids. And those kids were nice. They helped me throughout what I've gone through. They made me happy. I forgot all the things that I've gone through. And then when we had our first court day, we went there. Ray took us. He helped us find Emily, my mom's lawyer. She helped us get our asylum. My mom was still scared because we could get deported back. After that, I think a year later, Ron, Lidio, and Annika helped us get our green card. I was happy. My mom was happy. That time, I knew that I could stay here and move on and be happy with my mom. I started believing that I could follow my dreams and be what I want to be and move on from the things that I've gone through. I still remember some of the things, but I try to forget. My friends, usually my friend Victoria is there for me. She makes me happy. And the people around me makes me happy. These past years, I feel like I belong here. I feel like this is my home. My mom thinks the same too. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to all of you. Jose, do you have any more to add? Because I feel like you have a longer story also. Um,
Yeah, sure. First of all, Juana, I can feel your story as it was happening to me, just by the fact that I know what it's to see when your house is disprehending and you're losing things at the same time. Um, I'm not. I'm not going to get into more and into a lot of details, but when you're losing your house and you see that, for example, in our case, the hurricane was passing, and you see that your house, you're losing everything that you have, everything that you have been worked for. It's just like a devastating effect. So while that's happening, you're thinking, what am I going to do now? Now that I'm seeing that all my dream is like vanishing. So you think, okay, let's go to the States. At least I'm not considered maybe an immigrant to the United States, but we had the option to go to the United States because we live in Puerto Rico. And we just made the decision in the middle of the storm, like, okay, as soon as this is over, let's get out of the island and let's try to start a new life. But when we came here, we are all fine. Then you start like feeling that heat, what is going to be like living here now in the States, the language barrier, how it's going to be now to find a job. We applied for at least 70 jobs. I have only been called for 4 jobs. When you go to the DOL to get your license, they put you a lot of excuses, and you try to explain yourself, hey, I am a U.S. citizen. I want my driver license from Washington. No, but you have to pass through this all the process. Then you have to go over your web page, the web page that here you have guys in Washington, to try to prove your state that you're a U.S. citizen and you want a license. I don't want to maybe diminish my experience of being like a Puerto Rican versus an immigrant, but if I felt this, being an American citizen, I just can imagine not being an American citizen trying to approach services around. When it comes to the interaction with the community, with the people, it's not that easy. As I mentioned, the language is like something that many people take in consideration. They're going to hire you. And if you find a job or if you find a place, it's not like your dream job. And I'm going to add, if I may, I made an extract of a book named The Epic of America. It was from James Truslow Adams. He's an American writer and historian, and he coined that term American dream. And he says, like, that dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement. He continues saying, it is a difficult dream for the European upper class to interpret inadequately, and too many of us, of ourselves, has grown weary and mistrustful of it. And there comes the important part. The American dream is not a dream of motor cars or high wages merely, but a dream of social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest stature of which they are innately capable, and be recognized by others for what they are, regardless of the fortuitous circumstances of birth and position. And I know you guys, how many difficulties have you faced when you come to America, but I can tell by my experience that it's not like very easy to feel that first when it comes from institutions. Long story short, I'm very happy to be here on the library where I am right now trying to do more community engagement and try to not give a second chance, but a light of hope to many of my fellow Spanish speakers and to tell them that there's an opportunity, there's a lot of things that we can do together. And if we, as non-Spanish speakers, immigrants, can find a way to collaborate between each other, I think that we can make this part of Kitsap, with all due respect, to have a better understanding of what is to abandon one land or your land to start a new life here. So, thank you for that.
Do you miss Puerto Rico? Do you?
Well, I miss Puerto Rico a lot. I miss the Puerto Rico, the nature, which here also is very beautiful. I miss my family a lot. We live like, I miss that a lot.
What about? Sorry, do you want to put you on the spot? You miss Vietnam a lot?
I'm sorry, what?
You miss Vietnam a lot?
Yes, I do. I do. I've been here 6 years. I haven't had a chance to come back there to see my family there yet. But 5 or 6 years over here for me, that's a really big chance in my life. And I believe that's the best of the chance in my life. It happened. So everything is brand new about the culture, English, work, education, everything. So when I got everything kind of like start with my green card in Florida, and we flew over here because we got 1 or 2 relatives over here. And my aunt told me, say, hey, your husband kind of like couldn't handle with the heat over there. I said, hey, just come on over here, try to see, you know, maybe he likes it here or not, because it's really cool here. So so I say, okay, you know, we pack everything we can, and we left Florida to come over here to just kind of like, okay, first of all, just have got another chance to see America around and to live better over here. So that's why we in Kitsap now. And like the weather, it's just the same in Vietnam. It's kind of like real rain a lot and humid. But I live in the mountains, so it's not kind of much different. But we got a lot of sun too, and raining for like 5, 6 months nonstop. So it's cool. I mean, okay, it's cool. Yeah, but when I got in here, so just start working like 6, sometimes 7 days a week. But you know what? I don't know why, but when you can get your own, like you feel free, you can, hey, I got a job, I make more money, and so that just make me kind of work and work and work. And then I work, I do dishes, clean in a restaurant, and then just a year, took me a year, and then I say, you cannot do this like forever. So I just start think about I come back to school. And I got one of the cosmetology school in Seattle. So I went there, worked part-time, and then went there for like 2, 3 times a day to go there to enter the class there. And after like a year, more than a year, so I got the license to do cutting hair or kind of like all kinds of beautiful woman, something like that. And I got excited. But I mean, it just kind of like, if I think about like 4 years ago and I started having to go to school over there, so I don't think I can make it because I just got so sick when I got to the bus, into the bus. It just from the gene from my mom's side, so it so scared me. But that pushed me to go there and to get the license. And that's my dream. Before I come to America and before we plan on we're gonna stay here after my son 6 or 7 years old. So it's just, you can make things happen. I mean, I can start with that and everyone can start with that. So I love my job now, and I believe like every people in my family in Vietnam so proud of me and they're happy for me over here. So you can start your life, and with all the like beautiful like people and nice people. And I just talked to my mom about that. She said, you know, God bless you. So you know, just do your best and you will get it. And they say, you know, that it's just a big change in your life and you got it, you do it good. And especially, you know, one hand handle with kid and my husband got sick, seen that until now. And one hand working and go to school. I just, you know, every year go past. I think time is flying and that make me become more mature. Is that right? Is that the right word? Okay. And it just make me learn more, want to learn more and experiment more and be tougher. Is that I just mean it's wonderful. And I will always thank you to America, help me with this and help me with my life. And I never like forget like this change America give it to me. I always remember that until the day I pass. Thank you.
Do you miss Guatemala? Do you think about it?
I don't miss it. I only miss my family. Well, I don't have any family, but only my grandma. That's the only person that I miss, but I don't miss Guatemala at all.
Understandable. So I am going to just one more question before I hand out the questions to you guys, because as you can notice, I never moderated the panel before, clearly. But was just for you, Jose, because we were talking about missing your family. I was wondering what is it like for them right now after, and what is basically how is Puerto Rico these days from your understanding?
Puerto Rico is recovering right now due to the efforts of both governments. We wish that for the quantity of money that they're receiving, we think that the things should be better, but that's another $20 that we say. Yeah, my family is doing well. My father was without power for about 6 months or 7. My mother was about like 3 months. The services like water were restored eventually. The gasoline is now, Puerto Rico is now has all the gasoline reserves that it needs to continue operating. But that process of recovering is like a painful, it's painful for both parts because you know that you're okay in this side of the States, but your family is having another kind of difficulties recovering. And maybe my difference is that maybe I had the means to, well, start a new life in America, States. But it's not that easy when you have to pay money for obtaining a green card. And I have a very short story. My cousin Martin, he lives in Texas, and crossing the border, he had a son with a Mexican. When it comes to that part of naturalizing and obtaining a green card, it was a process that took him about like 3 years and thousands of dollars. And if you're starting a new life in America, you don't have that quantity of money available to start a process. So I'm not going to get into the details, but just going to throw you into this, guys. When you go into a new place, we all know that we all need money, we need the economical resources to start a new life. But apart from that, if you have laws that is an impediment or make that process longer, it's even more painful. And just by the fact of not all the countries, we have the same languages, the same culture. I think that Kitsap could open a little more when it comes to language on the institutions, a welcome sign in different languages. Maybe the ferry can be like more immigrant welcome, if I can say it that way, with all due respect. I think that you guys do wonderful things here as well. You have a strong commitment for consulting the decisions that you want to take around the country. I mean, by the elections. You want a library, you get elections for a library. You want to impose some tax, you go elections for that. There are countries that they don't have that capability or that voice on doing that. And that's what I admire of this part, that kind of a spirit of console and let's be together and let's do all these things because this is our land, you know, and you guys have control of this land with all due respect. And I admire that a lot because that's the spirit, that's the American dream, that's what we are here to improve our conditions of living. And I think that if countries or other parts of the states can follow the same laws or the same spirit, maybe as Kitsap, maybe all American could be a good place.
Wow, thank you guys. Sounds like this is a wonderful community. Thank you, Jose. So now we are going to open up for questions. If anybody has any questions for any of our panelists. Yes. Is there a mic to go around? Oh, just stand up. Oh, yes, it's small enough. Okay, okay. Yes. What?
Many people ask me, do you like spicy food? Well, I don't like spicy food. Why do you think that I like spicy food? Well, you guys in Latin America like spicy food. The second question I don't like to answer sometimes is like, where you from? Because that's a double, maybe sometimes like a double, they have a double meaning. But people are great and I answer the question a lot, so I don't have a problem with that.
For me, when I got to Florida, I think I remember one time I went to the officer. I couldn't remember was that because I went there with my husband and my son, and one lady in the office, she pointed to me. They say, "Are you a alien? Is that a word? Is that right?" I say, no, I live here because I don't know what that means. So I'm not from the space. So because I don't know I didn't know what she meant about that, and she wasn't happy or something. I say, did I do something wrong or something? Because you know, I'm not from the space, and I smile and I laugh, and she just kind of serious face. I say, and then I ask my husband, he say, oh, he didn't talk to me at that time. So when we got home, and he told me, she mean, you know, you're not from this country. So I feel like, wow, they feel like they not welcome me here, or did I do something wrong here? She say, no, it's okay, you know, and from that time I know what's the name, the meaning of the alien someone. So you know, and after that when I come here, nobody asked me, are you alien? I say no. Yeah, just about that. Yeah, I love people, and I love everything is in here. Yeah, I love it.
Was it?
What question don't you like being asked as an immigrant?
The question I like being asked is, where are you from? And I say, I'm here. I'm from here.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to add that I feel the same way because I never noticed that other immigrants feel that way. But to me, when I hear the question, where are you from, it basically says, you're not from here. And, like, if I'm here, I'm here. So let's not make a big deal out of it. I mean, because I live in New York City and I travel around the country, when you say, where are you from, I can say I'm from New York because that's where I live. People, no, really, where are you from? Yeah, so do we have another question? Yes, the phone.
All the time. Yeah, I had a conversation with Sarah some 2 days ago, and I picked my fight. But at the same time, I have been what's the name of the volcano here? I forgot the name. Mount Rainier. So yeah, sorry. So well, I forget things sometimes. So over there, a person asked me that question, like about Puerto Rico and all that. But at the same time, there's a lot of awareness of what is happening in Puerto Rico at the same time. And also there's an awareness of, many people know about you can go with a passport to Puerto Rico and you're not necessarily an immigrant. But I think that there's a long way to go so everybody can have this common sense about what it means to be in Puerto Rico.
Thank you. So I think that was the last question. So thank you guys so much. Thank you three so much. What a wonderful panel. And I'll pass on back to you.
Sure,
David.
that's fine. And I have a mic here, so you can keep it. Yeah, thank you very much. That was good. Let's, one more time. That's so much fun to hear kind of difficult stories, but also good stories and hopeful stories. And to me, they fit right in with what you've written. So that was wonderful. We're going to take a break, I think 15 minutes. So you have a chance, stretch your legs, stand up a little bit. We'll let these guys pull together and get a drink, and then we'll come back about 1:10, and we'll get to hear Imbolo speak about the book, and then do some more questions after that.
So I'm okay. Everyone just chill. I'm okay. It's okay. This is what we have to do.
Okay, if we could take our seats, we'll settle in for the second half of the program today. Like I opened with, I really enjoyed this book, and I hope that many of you did too. But it wasn't just us. Behold the Dreamers, it was an Oprah Book Club selection. It was named a notable book of the year by the New York Times and Washington Post. And it was best book of the year by close to a dozen other publications. So it's getting its credit that it deserves. The novel has been translated into 12 languages. It's adapted into an opera. It's going to become a stage play, and it may even option to become a film at some point in the future. So Imbolo has done something successful, and it's no surprise if you read the book, she is from Limbe, Cameroon. So this is very autobiographical in what she's said, or I shouldn't say it's autobiographical, it's based on her own life. She immigrated to America, of course. She's a graduate of Rutgers and Columbia Universities. And for now, for the next 40 minutes or so, she is going to tell you more about the book she has written. And so if you please join me again in welcoming her.
Thank you so much for having me again. I hope I didn't talk too much during the panel, because I hope I didn't say everything I wanted to say during that panel. So I thank you for the honor of choosing my book. Thank you to the library system and all of you for coming today. It means a lot. You know, when you write a book, you sit in your apartment, you write this book for many years. In my case, it took me 5 years to write this book. And you write a book and you have no idea what is going to happen to it. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself in Bremerton talking to a wonderful audience. So thank you. So I'd like to start off by telling you a bit about myself and where I'm from and how I ended up writing this book, Behold the Dreamers. So I should start off by telling you how my name is pronounced, because I hear so many pronunciations. But my name is actually Imbolo Mbue. My last name is just one syllable. It's hard to get it right without the right accent, but it's Imbolo Mbue. And like David just said, I am from Limbe, which is a seaside town on the west coast of Cameroon, and Cameroon is on the west coast of Africa. It's a lovely town. I spent most of my childhood there. Limbe had an open market. I would say we had a fair share of immigrants, even though as a child I didn't see them as immigrants. But we had a good number of Nigerians, and we had Ghanaians. We had people from the northern part of Cameroon, which is very different culturally, a lot of Muslims. So it was a fairly diverse small town as far as diverse small African towns go. The one thing that you should know about Limbe is that it is in the English-speaking part of Cameroon. Cameroon is bilingual. Most of it is French-speaking because part of it was colonized by the British, part of it was colonized by the French, and then they came together and formed one country. And I'm from the English-speaking part, so I mostly speak English. I don't speak much French. So Limbe is from this English-speaking part of the country. And my childhood there was good. I went to school with my friends. We usually walked to school. Christmas was wonderful. We ate a lot. We danced a lot. Even though I didn't dance much, because whenever I started dancing, people would say, "What are you doing? Please stop, please stop dancing right now." I was a bookworm. I was that kid who always sat in the corner reading a lot, which I imagine I have some fellow bookworms right here. I was always wondering why the world was the way it was. The one thing that bothered me even as a child was how I felt that people were treated differently based on how much money they had. It was just so obvious to me that rich people got so many privileges, and I noticed it in church. It's as if, the best, pews were reserved for the rich people. You come in, even if you're late, you're rich, you get a better seat. Their children got better treatment at school, and they could treat their employees any way they wanted because many people did not have much, and if somebody had money and they gave you money because you worked for them, you accepted whatever treatment. And I'm not sure how many children noticed and cared about that, but I did, and it upset me quite a bit. So classism was a very big issue in my childhood. So I went to high school. I went to an all-girls private high school, and after high school, I had relatives who offered for me to come to America to go to college here. And I said to myself, yay, I'm going to a country where everybody is rich. No more classism. Because that's what I'd seen on television. Everybody was rich in America. I saw it on the Cosby Show. I saw it on Beverly Hills 90210, and on Dallas and Dynasty and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I thought people really had butlers. And it wasn't only the television. It's also because the people who had left my town and gone to America or gone to Europe and come back, they had this air of success. Nobody came back and said, oh my God, I have to work 3 jobs. Nobody talked about how poor they were in America. They came back and they bought nice stuff, they wore nice clothes, they gave out a lot of money. So we couldn't help but think that America was this glorious country. I'd never heard about race relations in America because nobody came back and said, oh, in America, you're black. I never heard about class issues in America. I never heard about mass incarceration in America. I'd never heard of Martin Luther King Jr., believe it or not. I never heard of the civil rights movement or even about Native Americans. But I knew about Woodrow Wilson and the League of Nations and FDR and the New Deal because I studied it in school, which tells you a lot about what America chooses to export to the world and what my country's government wanted us to learn about America. So I arrived here in 1998, so 20 years I've been in this country. I arrived in 1998, and well, what did I think? Well, let me tell you the story of what happened the day I arrived. So I arrived in Newark International Airport in New Jersey, and the relative I was traveling with, he said, oh, let's go to McDonald's. I had to catch another flight to go to Chicago. And he said, oh, let's go to McDonald's. And I'd heard about this place called McDonald's. No, I don't know McDonald's, but I heard about this thing called a burger. So I thought, oh, cool, I'm going to have a burger. So we're driving from the airport to McDonald's. And that was the very first time in my life that I saw homeless people. I saw dilapidated houses. I saw young men idling on street corners during the workday, which gave me the impression that they were unemployed. It was nothing like the America of my imagination. So we got to McDonald's, and I looked at the menu, and I couldn't decide what I wanted because there wasn't just one kind of burger. I thought the burger was just one kind of burger. But instead, there was something called a Big Mac, and a double cheeseburger, and a quarter pounder. And I think those have now a double quarter pounder with cheese. And I didn't grow up in a place where there were so many options for one thing. You know, if you wanted to drink milk in my town, the whole town drinks one brand of milk. You know, you want to buy, vegetable oil, everybody has the same vegetable oil. So I didn't think that there were that many options to anything. And so I'm standing in McDonald's, and I'm looking at that menu. And I didn't want to spend my first few hours in the country thinking about burgers. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try something else. So I scanned the menu again, and I saw chicken nuggets. And I got a bit confused. I didn't know chickens have a thing called nuggets. So I said, you know what, whatever this nugget thing is, I'm going to try it. So I did, and it was so crispy, and I loved it. And for many years, McDonald's chicken nuggets had a special place in my heart. It did, because it reminded me of the moment when I first came to America, and I felt as if America had opened up its arms to me and said, welcome. And so that was good welcome, but it wasn't smooth sailing right after that, because I very much missed my hometown. So I came in September, so the weather was just getting very cold. And weather-wise, it was just very hard for me. And I had a few months before I could start college. And it was very hard not having friends and being in a cold place. And I went to Chicago, which is, really, really rough weather. But once I started college, that was a big turning point for me, because going to college and making new friends and learning a lot about America did a lot to alleviate my homesickness. And the one thing that made a big difference as far as feeling more comfortable here was that I had this openness about learning about this country in which I was now living. I had never heard about homosexuality before I moved here. But when I went to college, I met a friend, a guy who was gay, and we became very good friends, and I learned a lot about that. I attended a church which was predominantly Korean American, because I was interested in being around another culture. At one point, I met a guy from West Virginia. He was a hippie guy. He had this really long white beard, and I had this dream that I was going to marry him, and I'll move to West Virginia, and we'll have this wonderful hippie life. It didn't work out. But that just tells you about how fascinated I was about America and about all the different cultures, all the different people, all the different ideas, new ways of thinking. People could, love people from the same gender. It was also new, and so it fascinated me. And only now do I realize how much that openness and that spirit of curiosity, how much it would later serve me in becoming a novelist. But before I became a novelist, I had a long, difficult journey from arriving here and getting to this place. And that journey involved doing a lot of different jobs. So I'll tell you about some of the jobs I've done in this country. I was a dishwasher. I was fired after one day because I couldn't wash the dishes very fast. I worked at a deli, and that was another hard job. It's just too many kinds of meats and cheeses in this country. But pastrami, bologna, all these, many cheeses. So anyway, I loved that job. I was really good at making cheeses. After college, before I started graduate school, I was a bank teller. I was a secretary at a preschool. I was a front desk receptionist at an apartment building. I was a sales associate at a department store. And my least favorite job, I was a door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesperson. Yes, it was that bad. So in case you're wondering what it's like, you basically take your vacuum cleaner to somebody's house and you tell them, I'm going to demonstrate to you how wonderful this vacuum cleaner is. And then you vacuum their living room rug or carpet, and then they say, thank you, have a nice day. I didn't sell a single vacuum cleaner. So how did I end up becoming a writer? So during this period where I'm selling vacuum cleaners, this is after college, and I'm not quite sure what to do in my life, I lived very briefly in the town of Falls Church, Virginia. And one day while I was living in Virginia, I went to the public library, which is why libraries have a special place in my heart, because everything started in the public library for me as far as my writing career. So I walked into a public library, and I saw they had this shelf of Oprah's book club picks. And I'd never read any of those books. I was fairly new in America, but I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to try one of these books because Oprah Winfrey recommended it, so let me try one. And the first one that caught my eyes was Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. And I didn't know anything about Toni Morrison. I'd heard her name because she won the Nobel Prize in Literature, but I knew nothing about her. So I picked up this book because I had a very religious upbringing. I was raised as a Baptist, so I studied the Bible a lot, and Song of Solomon is a book in the Bible. So I thought it might be a book about something biblical. Well, I took this book home, and it was nothing biblical in that sense that I was thinking. But it was such a wonderful book. It just totally changed my life. Because the moment I finished reading that book, I just started writing. I can't say what it was about it, but it just compelled me to start writing. So I started writing, and I thought, oh, wow, this is a wonderful hobby. I never had any ideas that, I could do anything with my writing. I just wrote and wrote. It was probably very bad writing, but I didn't care. I just wanted to write. My dream was to go to graduate school and end up getting a PhD and become a college professor. So I got into Teachers College at Columbia University in New York City, and I moved to New York City. And while I was finishing at Columbia, I was working at a media company. So after I graduated from Columbia, I applied to get into PhD programs, and I got into a PhD program in California. But because this was 2008, 2009, and the recession had just started, I got a bit nervous about quitting my job and moving to California to start a PhD. So I said, I'm going to turn down the offer and keep on working at my job. I was working at a media company. I said, I'm going to turn down this offer and keep on stay at this media company, and hopefully some other time I'm going to get a PhD. So I turned down the PhD offer, and I stayed at my job. And then less than a year after, I believe it was about 10 months or so after I turned down the PhD offer, I lost my job. So now I had no job and no PhD offer. So I started looking for a new job, and I started trying to get into another PhD program. But because this was a financial crisis that just happened and the economy was fairly bad, I had a rather hard time finding a new job. And a couple of schools that I applied to for PhDs, they all rejected me. So it was during this period that I had no job, and I had no sense of how I was going to become a college professor without a PhD. That one day I went for a walk. So now we're in 2011. So one day in 2011, I went for a walk. I think I probably spent all day sending out resumes and waiting for somebody to call me. And I went for a walk, and I noticed on the street in Manhattan, in Midtown Manhattan, I noticed these chauffeurs waiting on the street corner. And these chauffeurs were waiting for the men they worked for. The men looked like they were executives, like businessmen. So I became very intrigued by what I'd just seen. And I said, what is it like to be a chauffeur? And what is it like to be an immigrant, coming here, working as a chauffeur, and the family that this man works for, the executive he works for, what is his life like? And what is their relationship? So I went back home, and I said, I'm going to write a story about a chauffeur and the family he works for, and how both of these families, the chauffeur's family and the executive's families, how their families were affected by the financial crisis. Because my life had been affected by the financial crisis. I was unemployed. So I'm going to write this story. So just an FYI, I have no creative writing background. I have never taken a writing class, but something gave me the idea that I could write this book. So I went home and I started writing this story. And I was unemployed, so I had a lot of time on my hands. I did a lot of writing and rewriting, and then I started sending it out to agents because an agent had read an excerpt of some other work I'd had, and she said, "You have a lot of potential. You should try to get your work published." So I thought, oh, I guess I should take her advice and get my work published. So I sent this story to agents, because to get your book published, you need to have an agent to represent you to the publisher. So I sent this story to agents pretty much all over the country, and every single agent rejected it. And so I kept on writing and rewriting it. Of course, the book needed to get better. I mean, the story was always there, but the writing needed to get better. So after dealing with lots of rejections and doing a lot of rewrite, I finally got an agent in 2014. By then I'd been writing the book for 3 years. And the agent agreed to represent me, and she sold the novel to Random House, and the novel came out in 2016. So, what is this book about, in case you haven't read it? Well, Behold the Dreamers is about the glorious America that I saw on television in Cameroon, and the America of hopelessness and despair that I saw the day I arrived here. Both of these Americas are real. I know this because, like the immigrants in my novel, I've lived in both of them. The novel is set from 2007 to 2009, and is centered around 2 families living in New York City. One family is from my hometown, and they came here like me, believing in the America that they'd seen on television, in the promise of America that we've been taught to believe back home, that you work hard and your dreams will come true. The other America is a wealthy white family living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And by all accounts, they have achieved the American dream of material comfort. And yet, they too are dreamers, because there's still so much that they want. People have asked me, "Imbolo, did you grow up having dreams? You wrote a best-selling novel about people with dreams, so you must be the ultimate dreamer." I'm not quite sure how to answer to that question, because I didn't grow up in the sort of dream culture I found in America. What I knew even as a child was that I had potential. I didn't know what my potential was for, but I believed that someday I would realize my potential. There weren't many opportunities in Limbe, and without opportunities, even if you have dreams, it's unlikely your dreams will come true. So I never heard anyone say, "Dream big, go after your dreams will come true." Or my favorite, "Hold on tight to your dreams." Those were very, very American notions when I came here. But what we had in the absence of dreams was a sense of contentment. If you couldn't leave Limbe to go overseas and get rich, you accept your circumstances and celebrate life for what it is. Only now, as I get older, do I realize what a gift contentment is, and how special our lives were, even in the absence of modern amenities. I spent my early childhood in villages in which my mother worked as a community development assistant, and the houses in which we lived had no electricity or running water. But I don't remember ever wishing our lives were different. I would say I had a very happy early childhood. Our house in Limbe had electricity but no running water. But that was part of the fun, going with my cousins and my friends to fetch water from the public tap, and chatting as we walked back home with our buckets of water on our heads. Even relatives and friends who lived in what Americans would call a hut, their lives were full because there was a great sense of community, and people were happy because even though they didn't have much, they had the basics. The weather was beautiful, and life was incredibly simple in a way I can only now appreciate. When my novel first came out, one of the first reviews of the novel made a mention of my childhood and said I'd grown up in extreme poverty. And I said, yikes. The funny thing is, I usually don't read reviews of my novels or anything that mentions my name for that matter, and I spend very little time on the internet. But a couple of friends said, you have to read this review, and I read it. And it was a glowing review. But I had a very hard time getting over how my childhood was mischaracterized. I have no doubt that the reviewer's use of the phrase extreme poverty came from a positive place. I've met the reviewer, and he's a wonderful man. I'm a fan of his. And I knew he was simply trying to illustrate how far I'd come from being a small-town African girl to an American novelist. The reviewer was hardly the only American to make such an assumption. But the truth is that I did not know poverty until I came to America and found myself with barely enough to eat on some days. That said, my novel is not autobiographical, though I certainly borrowed from my life. Like me, the characters Jende and Nenny, those are the African immigrant couple. They're from my hometown, and they live in Harlem, which is where I once lived. But the novel was mostly influenced by stories from other immigrants, and we just heard some wonderful stories today. I live in New York City, and I meet immigrants all the time, and like all around the country, and a lot of the novel was inspired by other immigrants and other native-born Americans who told me about what their lives are like. As far as a wealthy family in the novel, I don't know people like that. A lot of what I wrote about them just came from being very nosy about people when I meet them, when they talk about how big their houses are, or the vacation in St. Bart, or wherever the vacation. And I had to do a lot of research also. Most of my research was for Lehman Brothers, because the novel is centered around the fall of Lehman Brothers. And I read a lot of the document that was put together by a court-appointed examiner, and the document contained emails between the different Lehman Brothers executives and how they had this sense that nothing was going to really happen to this company. So I read a lot of that because I was very fascinated about what happened at Lehman Brothers, how this big, giant company, how it fell apart, and how it created this ripple effect that affected many people, including me. So my novel, after it came out, a lot has been said about it, thankfully, because it got attention. And words like savage have been used to describe it, as far as his depiction of the American dream. So when the novel came out, I was asked many times, Imbolo, what is your definition of the American dream? Over and over, I was asked this question. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. If the American dream is something that anyone and everyone can achieve, then it can't be material. It can't be financial. I have come to realize that the American dream, in its pure form, not the form that is in movies, not the form that Hollywood tries to sell, not the form that the media talks about, but the American dream in its essence can be achievable to everyone, because the real American dream, the American dream that is the foundation of this country, is freedom. Freedom, as the essence of the American dream, is the reason why this country is called the land of the free. It is the reason why we have Lady Liberty at New York Harbor. It is the reason why people sell their possessions in their native lands and move here, so they and their children can live freely. The characters in my novel are unhappy, not because they don't have big houses, or because their fortunes are tied to a collapsing economy. They are unhappy because they're not free. They're being held in bondage by one thing or another. Immigration officials who are threatening to deport them, miserable jobs, the racist and sexist society in which they live, classism, relationships that break their heart. In one way or another, these characters are in bondage. And in some ways, it is their choice. They made choices that got them into bondage, and they made choices that kept them in bondage. So I'm now going to start sounding like some annoying yoga instructor. Please bear with me. But what I've learned, what I've found to be true from my experiences and from writing this novel, is that for most of us here today, freedom is a choice. Unlike millions of people throughout history and around the world right now, we can fully claim our freedom. No one can tell you what your freedom looks like or how to step out of bondage and be free. People can advise you, they can tell you what they've learned, they can guide you, but only you can truly tell yourself what freedom looks like. Freedom is like that line in the movie The Matrix when Morpheus says to Neo, no one can tell you what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. The financial crisis was triggered in part by people who believed that owning a house was freedom. So they took debt they couldn't pay back, and then they found out that what they'd been told was freedom had become their bondage. There are people who have little money or don't own cars or houses or even smartphones, and yet they're living the American dream because they're free. This lesson is one of the greatest gifts America has given me, the knowledge that I can choose freedom. The other theme that I've been asked to talk about often, as far as this novel is concerned, is the issue of home, specifically what home means to me. Well, for many years after coming to America, I considered Limbe, Cameroon, my hometown. I consider it to be my only home, and it is still very much my home. But the difference between when I first came here and now is that Limbe is no longer my only hometown. I consider New York City my hometown too, because I found a great deal of acceptance there. Only after moving to New York City did I finally feel at home in America. I think it's the diversity, the way anyone can come from anywhere and feel as if the city belongs to them. Living in a city that couldn't be more different from my hometown has taught me a lot about home. It has pushed me to learn how to be at home anywhere, because I've come to learn that my home isn't some place out there. Home is something that I carry within me. Of course, there are places where I feel more at home than others. And after listening to what our panelists said and after meeting people here, I can say that I do feel very much at home in here today. So thank you, guys. Interestingly, as much as I love my hometown of Limbe, I've had to accept that I no longer have the same sense of belonging there like I used to when I was growing up. And that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just very different. I'm just a very different person from the person I was when I left. I suppose in some ways it is a loss, and this is hardly unique to me. Many people I meet also had the experience of returning to their hometowns after they left and discovering that they no longer have the same wonderful sense of belonging they once had there. Ultimately, life and circumstances change us and our birthplaces. I'll tell you a story to illustrate, why I feel this sense of, not having Limbe as my hometown the same way anymore. So last year I went home to visit my family back there, and my cousin picked me up from the airport. And as we're driving from the airport, I said to my cousin, I said, "Do you guys have Wi-Fi?" And she said, "What is Wi-Fi?" And I said, "Come on, this is 2018. Everybody has Wi-Fi. What do you mean, what is Wi-Fi?" She said, "We don't have this thing called Wi-Fi. What are you talking about?" I said, "How do you guys use the internet?" She said, "I don't know." And then later, a few minutes later, she said, "Oh, wait, I think I know what you're talking about. You mean how to, to connect to the internet directly?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, you're so silly. It's not called Wi-Fi. It's called Wi-Fi." And then she starts making fun of me. Imbolo is saying Wi-Fi instead of Wi-Fi, haha. And I really felt very different then, because it just reminded me of when I came to America and my friends would make fun of certain things about me that I did because I was different, and now it had flipped over. And later I learned that because my country is predominantly French, that Wi-Fi is actually the French word for Wi-Fi. That's why they call it Wi-Fi. So if you go to France, just ask for the Wi-Fi. So one of the reviews about my novel, when it came out in 2016, was in the Washington Post. And the title of the review was, "Behold the Dreamers, the one novel Donald Trump should read." So I was asked a lot, "Imbolo, do you agree with that headline? Why should Mr. Trump read your novel?" And I said, "I don't know. Does he read books? I don't know. I don't know the guy like that. Does he read any kind of books?" But I think that what the reviewer was trying to get at with that headline was that my novel, like any other great novel, is about empathy. It's about fostering empathy by sharing our stories. If you were here for the panel, you had 3 different stories. And I imagine that you think differently about those 3 people because you heard their stories. Last year, I was speaking in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. During the Q&A session, a very nice man stood up and said, Imbolo, I recently read a piece in the New York Times that was written by a black transgender woman about the challenges of being black and transgender in New York City. So can you tell me more what it's like to be black and transgender in New York City? It was one of those questions that totally stumped me. How could I speak about something I know almost nothing about? Of course, I gave the nice man a very nice response, but whatever I said certainly wasn't the best answer because I did not have the answer. My knowledge of transgender experiences is very limited. But that question got me thinking a lot about personal experiences and stories, and who gets to tell them. What would have happened if I'd claimed to know something that I don't and told that man? It would have been anywhere from disrespectful to dangerous. The more I thought about that episode, the more I realized while it is incumbent on each of us to take it upon ourselves to tell our own stories and to make sure that our stories are told. And again, the panel was a great example because you got to hear the stories directly from the people who live the stories. The world is full of untold stories. America is full of untold stories. And I believe that is one of the many reasons why our country is as divided today as it is. Millions of stories have been untold for too long, for countless reasons. Our duty, each and every one of us, is to make sure that our stories are told, and as many untold stories as possible move from darkness to light, because stories are needed to bring about change in this country. We're living at a time when courageous men and women are rising and saying, my story has been untold for too long, and I'll tell it no matter the cost. We see it with the Me Too movement. We saw it with USA Gymnastics. We've seen it with the Dreamers. We saw it today on stage. Telling the stories came at no small cost. But these courageous individuals are doing it. And now a new day is dawning across America. I am surprised by the number of people who have said to me after reading my novel, I had no idea what it's like to be an immigrant. I had no idea how difficult it is to move from being undocumented to documented. Now they know that it's more than just a number like 11 million people without papers. It is about human beings who have stories and dreams. One of my favorite quotes about stories is also the epigraph in one of my favorite novels, The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. The quote is by the writer John Berger, and it says, never again will a single story be told as though it's the only one. Never again will a single story be told as though it's the only one. What this quote reminds me of is the fact that for too long, the world has been shaped by the stories that people in power wanted to be told. But it won't be so anymore. I hope that on this day, we will each go forth and do all what we can to make sure that every story has a chance to be told. And speaking of that, I am going to read an excerpt from this novel, which is about the story of 2 families. One family is fairly more undocumented than not. And this is a scene when family is going through a very hard time. They are in danger of deportation, and the father of the family, his name is Jende. His father died in Cameroon. And without having papers, he can't go to bury his father, because if you don't have papers, you leave the country, you can't really come back in. So I'm going to read the scene of what happens after Jende's father dies in Cameroon, and he cannot go to bury his father. And so he had his brother make a DVD video of the funeral, which is quite common practices. When something happens back home, they make a DVD and they send it to you to see. So this is what happened after Jende got a DVD video of his father's funeral. Jende watched it all, the funeral, on the video he had asked his brother to make. He watched the 6-hour DVD in one sitting. He saw his mother collapse in grief when the casket opened to reveal his father's body after he had been brought home for the week. He listened to the speeches about what a good man Pa Jonga was and what a fine farmer and draughts player too. He watched the dances that went on from late Friday night till early Saturday morning. He listened to the pastor's sermon in the house, a sermon about how neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation can separate God's children from his love. Jende watched the moment when his father's body was lowered into the ground, and the pastor bellowed, Ikola Jonga, from dust you came, to dust you will return. Jende's sorrow at not being able to bury his father was heavy as his grief at the death. Every scene in the video made him cry, except for the ones when he was too astonished by the weight gained, or gray hair developed, or teeth lost by certain friends and family members, people he hadn't seen in almost 5 years. The day after he watched the video, his back began to ache. He had to leave one job early one afternoon and call off the other in the evening. The pain in his feet seemed to have traveled to his back, only with more ferocity. He spent many mornings before work lying on the floor, writhing in pain, swallowing as many as 5 Tylenol capsules at a time. A colleague referred him to a cash-only doctor in Jamaica, Queens, who charged him $60 for a 20-minute consultation after informing him that the accident health insurance plan his wife had bought was pretty much useless. In a windowless office, the doctor examined him and told him his pains might be stress-induced. Are you dealing with any major stressors in your life? The doctor asked him. Am I dealing with any major stressors in my life? Jende wanted to say. Yes, doctor, turns out I am. In a few weeks, I am due to stand in front of an immigration judge to continue begging him to please not deport me. My father just died, and I could not bury him. What could be a bigger shame for a firstborn son? My mother is getting too old to be breeding pigs and farming and selling in the market, so I have to start sending her money more frequently. I have a wife and 2 children who I need to feed and clothe and shelter every day. My wife is supposed to return to school to keep her student visa, and I don't know if I'll be able to afford her international student tuition by washing dishes at restaurant. She may have to drop out of school and leave without any kind of papers. Maybe she'll even end up in front of an immigration judge too, begging to please be allowed to remain in the country so she can find a way to finish her school. Forget about school. We don't even have enough to cook a good meal with chicken some days. I am holding on tightly to my savings so that I'll be ready for the day when worse comes to worse. And now I ask myself, what am I saving it for? The worst has come to the worst, and my back is breaking. So yes, doctor, I have many stressors in my life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I believe we're going to take questions now, if there are any questions. Yes? Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. First of all, does somebody, what is that noise? What is it? No? Nobody knows? Okay. I will just ignore it. I was just curious, what is it? So the first question, what the name Mighty, I wish I had a good answer, but I don't. I just thought of a name that somebody like Cindy might give to their child. You know, like the Hollywood people give their children names like Apple and Helicopter, and I just thought Mighty was one of those names. The only name that I put a lot of thinking into was the name Clark. because I named him on homage to Clark Gables because I love Gone with the Wind. Yeah, I know, not a good reason, but I did love that movie. And what was your second question? I'm sorry. The immigration lawyer, yes. Yeah, not a good lawyer. But that story, again, is like one of the many stories that I heard from other immigrants that I put together. It is a very common story. Lots of immigrants who, their lives in America was more or less almost, ended because of bad immigration lawyers. And I'd read an article in the Times before I started writing this book about this lawyer in Chinatown in New York City who gave his clients stories to tell. Like, so tell immigration this story and they'll give you papers. And I kind of used that to write this character. But no, he's not a good lawyer. And I really tell people you need a really, really good lawyer to make it through immigration system, especially if you're going to file for asylum. It's a very, very complex system. And don't get a lawyer like this one. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's Mike. Right. Okay. Right. So that, I'm glad you asked that question because nobody ever asked me that. So you don't just apply for citizenship. The way it works is that you come to America, then you apply for a green card, but you need to have a reason to be given a green card. So you need to have a job or family or something somebody to sponsor you to have a green card. After you have a green card, and then you're a good, upstanding, person in the community, you don't do any crimes or anything, then you get citizenship. But you need to have a green card first. So, and the reason why we have 11 million illegal immigrants is because it is very, very, very hard to get a green card. Nobody chooses to be illegal. Nobody chooses to not have papers. I mean, maybe some people would, but most people would rather have papers. But the system is designed to make it very hard to have papers unless you have a very, very good reason. That is why they don't have papers. Not unless you have a green card for 3 years if you've been married to a citizen, or 5 years otherwise. But you need to have a green card and pass a test also. So yes, it is, I mean, a lot of my American friends, they say, oh my God, it's so hard to become a citizen. It is. I mean, obviously there's good reason. It's a great country. We have to make sure that we monitor who becomes a citizen. But this book is about how hard it is to get to be a citizen. That is why they did not. But I will not talk about the end. Please don't mention the end in your question so that in case people haven't read it, they don't get to know the ending. Yeah. Because I get that a lot of people say, let's talk about why X, Y, Z happened in the end. And then other people start yelling at them, and then I have to calm everybody down. Yes.
I read your book when it first came out a few years ago, and then I reread it last winter because my book club of 2,
Yay.
We picked it, and of course because it was the one book. But the first time I read it, I really disliked Yende, and I was sympathetic to Neni. And then when I reread it, I really sympathized with Yende and disliked Neni.
What did I do wrong?
I know. and it's like who was right and who was wrong in making a decision to go back to Cameroon.
Oh, yes, ending there.
And
see, I told you people were going to get upset.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
She didn't realize she was doing it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But and the men in the story, Clark and Yendi, I thought they were wonderful men and sympathetic. And I really disliked the 2 women.
Right.
Because they weren't realistic, or I don't know.
Right.
But I guess my question is, who could you sympathize with throughout their story of being in New York,
Right.
between the husband and the wife?
Right.
I guess that would be my question.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I completely understand what you mean about changing who you like, because people say to me, excuse me, oh, Imbolo, you must like Nanny a lot, right? She's a very hardworking young African woman like yourself. No, I did not feel like that when I was writing that character. And now people say, you exactly like her, but I never thought that she was anything like me. I always sympathize with gender because he's not very smart, you know. Is that it? Well, just something about somebody who is not gifted with intelligence that I have a soft spot for, you know. Actually, sometimes I'm really not kind to people who I don't think are very smart, but I think that when you see people more up close, when you write their story, even the fictional characters, you see them very, very differently, and it creates a different level of empathy. And I was also very surprised at how much I came to empathize with the character of Cindy Edwards, because that is not the character who I would like in real life. You know, she's not very likable. She's a bit entitled. She's a quote-unquote bourgeoisie, and I don't have friends like that. I don't hang out with people like that. But what writing this novel taught me was the importance of going behind the scenes of other people's lives. It's so easy to meet people and say, oh, this rich, snooty woman. I'll give an example. Before we came on the panel, while we were backstage, Juana was the young lady on the stage. I don't think she's here, but so when in a green room, she came and she and her friend, she was with a friend, and we're, beautiful teenage girls chatting, laughing. And one of them, I don't know which of them, mentioned, oh, I want to meet Justin Bieber. And I said, oh, so boring, you want to meet Justin Bieber, like a very teenage thing. But it's so easy to think this is a teenager who wants to meet Justin Bieber and not think, like, would you imagine that to be her story? So writing this book made me realize there's so many layers to people, so many layers. And we do ourselves a great disservice by not having curiosity about those layers. Right. Well, I think your point is that...
Could you repeat it?
Yes. So you're saying that the characters did not ask a lot of questions, did not ask for a lot of help. Right. Right. Well, so her point is that the immigrant characters, they didn't explain their situation and their needs, and they didn't ask for help as much. And that they might have benefited from, say, Gender, who was the immigrant. He could have told his boss, who is Clark, the well-connected Wall Street executive, about his situation. And I say that is true, but the one thing you have to realize is that being an illegal immigrant is a shameful thing. Okay. 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 Oh, I see. To ask. Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Oh, I see. So you say, she said she, right. Okay. Okay, so I say the opposite. So she's saying that American citizens could ask more questions of immigrants, right? Which is like what happened on the panel today, right? You got to hear stories that you wouldn't. I mean, I'm a favorite example, I would never have imagined Juana's stories if, she hadn't said it. But that is a very good point that, they could have asked more, but people are so sequestered in their own lives. People, Clark is a busy Wall Street executive. Does he really sit there and worry about his help? Does he worry about where he lives, how he lives, does he have enough food? It is not so much his concern But yes, there is an element of curiosity that is not there. And maybe because I'm a writer and because my writing is driven by curiosity, I think that we really could all ask each other more questions. Some people are not the best storytellers. You might ask them for their story and it'll be this really boring story. But the point is that, it's about the content, right? It's about the content. Not to be intrusive into their privacy, but to just ask, even if it's your neighbor or your friend or the lady at the grocery store, just a simple question. And you could learn something about somebody that would, open up a whole new world to you.
We have one over here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I just wanted to acknowledge the importance that you brought to every character's mental health issues in this book, and how they were so multi-layered. Like Mighty really grappled with a lot of things in his own life. His mother's mental health issues. He didn't really understand the disproportionate power roles between the chauffeur and his father. It was very black and white, not to use that literally, but he looked at everyone just as face value. And then you put that next to Cindy, and everything that she lived for was how it appeared to her group of people that she surrounded herself with. So it was very surface. And the immigrants' issues related to they're trying to fit themselves into these small little holes and not appear to be weak.
Right.
But at the same time, their community of other immigrants and how much that brought joy to their lives and really helped them feel secure.
Right.
I just really appreciate all that, from like Clark's need to pursue prostitutes, to find fulfillment, to everybody else's kind of weaknesses. It really brought a lot of depth to the characters. So
Thank you.
to
Thank
read
you.
that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, because this novel was inspired by people that I've met and lived around, it was really important to me that I was honest in my portrayal of the characters, and that it wasn't exactly easy for me to write everything that you said, but I knew that I had to tell the story, realistically, and that even if people did not like it, and for example, when I was trying to get this book published, I sent it out to all these agents, like I said, and a lot of agents rejected it, and this one agent said to me, I don't like the ending. Americans love happy endings, and this is not a happy ending. And I said, I'm sorry, Americans are going to have to deal with it because I'm not changing the ending. But it was important to me that I don't write something to please anybody per se, that I just tell the story for what it is. And the point I was going to make earlier to the lady's question, which was not the wrong answer, was about the issue of, being an undocumented immigrant and the shame of it, and about poverty, even as an immigrant, as a citizen, because I have lived that experience. I mean, and I found American poverty to be very brutal, very brutal. It's rough to be poor in this country. But writing about all that wasn't easy, especially writing about not having papers when I have people in my life who don't have papers. And sometimes I thought, am I going too far? But I knew that I had to tell the story, and that even if nobody read it, that I did the best I could. But thank you so much, and thank you all. I think we've run out of time. Oh, there's one more question. Okay. Oh, more than one. Okay. Oh, we keep on going. Okay.
Oh, hello. Hello. So there was a scene where I really started to bond with Nenny, and that was where she and her husband were like having a disagreement about whether or not to go to the bar, because like, why couldn't we just have friends over and we can talk in peace? Why do you want to yell at your friends?
Right.
And so, which I could totally relate to that. And then going into this confusing, socially awkward situation, and then wanting to leave right away, and it's happened to me. And then there's this really poignant moment where she goes out and realizes that everybody is walking with somebody like themselves. And I just wondered if it's something that you experienced in Manhattan, and that if it was something that influenced that scene.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. And while, I like to say that I'm nothing like Nenny, that whole bar scene was somewhat inspired by my own experiences, because I don't like bars. I mean, I don't like being in that kind of space. I don't drink alcohol to begin with, so that makes going there not that fun. But that experience of being somewhere that you're very different and you're aware of it. Yes, as an immigrant, you come here, and especially when I came here and I went to college, I just had to do it over and over. But I did enjoy some of it. Some of it was difficult. And to your question about noticing people always being with their kind, yes. Even in New York City, I mean, people are with their kind because it is what is most comfortable. It is comfortable to be with somebody who thinks like you, looks like you, talks like you. I mean, a lot of people from my country, they hang out with other people from my country. And we're not the only ones. You go to different towns, you see different pockets of immigrants living in the same neighborhoods. It is because there's just comfort in doing that. And I can't say that it is not the best way to be, but I also think that, we could push ourselves a little bit more. So that experience of noticing people is something that I lived in, and I see it in New York City still. I just see that people just like sticking with their kind, even if it's not racial-wise or ethnic-wise, even if it's just socioeconomically-wise. People just prefer to be with their kind. And Nanny noticed that, and I think that is why she said, everybody's with their kind. Why am I trying to be with other people like myself? But for my own life, I have learned that I have to push myself. I have to push myself to be out a little bit more because I have grown and learned a lot. And this book came from doing that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 To write another book? Yeah, it was great to meet her. I mean, right, but yes, I didn't, right. Yeah, I got a call from her. I was told to expect a call, but they didn't tell me it was going to be Oprah. And I got a call, and I picked up, and I heard a voice say, "Hello, Imbolo, it's Oprah." And I said, "Oh my gosh, she sounds like Oprah." That's exactly how she said it. And I was too, wait, it is Oprah. But she was, no, I'll tell you. But she invited me to her house, and I went there, and it was a wonderful experience. But yeah, she was very, very, very inspiring to be with, and not to write another book per se, but, to keep on, being true to myself, which is her message, to keep on. I mean, my next book, if you're interested in knowing anything about it, somebody wants to know. So it's going to be nothing like this one. It couldn't be any more different. But it is true, just as this one is true also. Thank you so much. Are you standing there because I should get off the stage?
You're welcome to stay as long as you want.
No, I will. Well, thank you guys so much. I'll leave now. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Imbolo. That was a wonderful talk. I believe she is going to stay a little while longer out in the back, and so you're all invited to hang out a little bit, get a book signed, ask questions if there's time for that. I couldn't help get caught on when she said the empathy of, how did she phrase it? Fostering empathy by sharing our stories. When I was out at the break, I was talking to my friend Steve there, and he had clearly been touched by what the panelists said this morning, or this afternoon. And so Steve started telling me about his father-in-law and where he had come from and not knowing all of the immigration past. And I started telling him about my Vietnamese friend who I grew up with, who immigrated by himself. And so it was happening. And in my line of work, we also believe in telling stories and getting this community to talk to one another and know who we are. And so the Kitsap Regional Library, I'm going to invite you and take part in something they're doing. If you look in the Insight magazine that is out in the foyer there, there's a page that talks about a StoryCorps project. What it is doing, it's kind of a folklore, audio recording, talking, and then getting to hear what other people say. And so there's more information out there. I'm sure one of their staff members who's around could help you too if you're interested in doing that. I think one last time, I would like to say thanks to KRL for hosting this. And of course, thanks to Olympic College and the Olympic College Foundation for making the room available. And that's it. There's some more snacks out there, and please enjoy them. Thanks for coming, and have a safe trip home.